as the Houston Rockets have done their fan base justice this season, as they begin to act on the position that they find themselves way ahead of their rebuild. That's due to the progression of guys like Şengün and Jabari Smith. And with the acquisitions of Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks, all these players combined have put pressure on justifying the type of shots that Jalen Green takes. These guys, they're scoring at a much higher efficiency clip, and it's going to get harder and harder to justify not only the minutes Jalen Green gets out there, but the number of shots he gets to take. Now, the premise behind me naming this series, Are You a Bubble Star?, is back in 2020 when the NBA had continued their season in the bubble. The perfect unique circumstances happened all at once that resulted in a number of players like TJ Warren, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Damian Lillard to average a lot higher point levels than they normally would. Thus, the term Mickey Mouse MVP came about. And I always remember thinking, that circumstance just did not happen in a bubble. It happens every season in the NBA. And this season, we're seeing it turn out for Zach LaVine. And in this segment right here, we're seeing it play out with Jalen Green. But not the only recent acquisitions of Dillon Brooks, VanVleet, along with the rapid progression of Şengün and Jabari Parker have contributed to this team's overall culture change, but it's also the unique circumstances that happened to land Ime Udoka on the Houston Rockets. So all these things combined have accelerated the Rockets in a culture shift that has affected Jalen Green, because the first 2 seasons he had in Houston is pretty much out of sight, out of mind. And him playing that kind of AAU freestyle basketball with no pressure to win now has to fit into a team concept that this season has been producing wins. And I don't blame Jalen Green. It's not like Houston made a mistake drafting him as a second overall pick, but he is a product of AAU culture, that overtime / elite / ball is life culture that's been festering around the amateur circuit for years now, where at times it looks like a popularity contest. Players sort of develop the wrong mentality coming up from a young age. And there's a lot of outside influences in those leagues, such as the Nike, Under Armour / Adidas tournaments, where the level of competition is pretty much filtered to players who are on teams that are sponsored by these companies. An unintended consequence of AAU has been just players actually just showcasing their game. There's no emphasis in players playing around a team concept. You got the most athletic guys flying in, playing for 2 different teams at times in one tournament, and coaches really concerned about just winning so they can maintain their sponsorship with either Nike, Adidas, etc. So a lot of this does have a trickle-down effect to the product that you see comes into the NBA from year to year. And I'm not even going to add the social media popularity element to this, but Jalen is definitely a product of this. And him coming into year 3, we're seeing him get benched in certain fourth quarter situations. And also Houston is kind of suffering from having too many cooks in the kitchen. We've seen the rise of Cam Whitmore this season. Jae'Sean Tate has proved this season to be a vital piece coming off the bench, especially defensively, as he can guard 1 through 5. The Rockets recently also traded for Steven Adams, who's pretty much locked in for next season. And you could begin to see some of the pieces that are being crafted around this team to actually get them to move up that Western Conference in the middle of the pack as some of the more veteran teams within that conference start to age out. But just understanding Jalen's archetype, a guy who's been pretty much given the green light to just shoot and dunk since he's been a teenager, and him having his first 2 years in the league just playing that freestyle ball, it just adds on to that false sense of security. And that's what a lot of the AAU culture has kind of festered among players. We see it play out even within the veterans in the league, but even the great legend Kobe Bryant spoke on this. And that culture around AAU is one of the reasons why he started the Mamba camp.
Kobe, you've been pretty critical of the AAU system and the way American players are brought up.
Not pretty critical, I'm extremely critical. I hate it. Because it doesn't teach our players how to play the right way. How to think the game, how to play in combinations of threes. And I think everything is it's a reward system. I think coaches who are teaching the game are getting rewarded one fashion or another. And it's just a showcase.
Do you feel like
it's absolutely horrible for the game.
The young guys that are coming up, do you feel like the game is kind of stiff, whereas when your guys were more skilled?
Yeah, but I think that was just by luck in the generation that I grew up in. You know what I mean? Because like my generation is when the AAU basketball really started becoming shit. You know, and I got lucky because I grew up in Europe.
Right.
everything there was still fundamental. So I learned all the basics. And I think we're doing a tremendous disservice to our young basketball players right now. And that's something that definitely needs to be fixed, and it's going to be one of the things that I definitely focus on.
But again, I'm just putting into proper perspective on the way Jalen Green came up and a lot of the false reassurances he got coming up as a preteen to teenager to him getting all the way up into the league, which by the time the NBA grabbed him up and had him play for the G League Ignite, it was already too late. It's hard to break all those habits that he had from a youth. He would have been better off had they grabbed him and gave him a more balanced approach from a young age up. But with all these trade rumors surrounding Jalen Green, the Houston Rockets fan base should be proud of their franchise, because a lot of other NBA teams, sometimes they cannot get past the fact that a guy's putting up decent numbers as far as scoring, but it's not at an efficient clip. And they just stay stuck on how they can market him to sell tickets to fans. Meanwhile, he's hurting the team. So kudos to the Houston Rockets for implementing a new culture, and it actually involves around winning. And there's really nothing wrong with Jalen Green, as he's a young player still developing. But this is a very rare occurrence where you see a franchise that goes from playing freestyle ball and rebuilding, and now just like that, they're all of a sudden in a better position to actually compete, while at the same time the conference that they play in has veteran teams that are aging out. So it is what it is. The Rockets are in a very good position. They got a lot of chefs in the kitchen though. They're probably gonna have to bundle a few guys, do almost like a 2-for-1, and perhaps give guys like Whitmore more space to operate in. Maybe get a two-way guard who can defend and shoot. And with the coach they have, they should have success going forward. But the Rockets fan base should be proud, because the other side of this coin could be them ending up like the Chicago Bulls. That's all I have for today. Until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.